I'm going to show you what the students see on their web page when they go into Delta Math to see the quiz assignment that I assigned for them. Here, under Tools, this nice feature, Sample Student Page, allows for you to see what the students see in your different sections. Right here, you'll see for Section 6 from Algebra 2 class, I had already opened it up for them, so it's telling me time over, even though I didn't really do any of the problems. And so because I clicked on the begin assignment, it counted down, and I did that during the school day so they could see what it looks like for them, because this was the first time we did a quiz on Delta Math. And so it's not going to let me look at that. So that's why I always put my assignments into the assignment bank burst so that I can look at it without looking at those pages. That way I can look at them individually with the students as I zoom with them. So here you'll see, for some reason it says time over again. I did this before. Let me refresh the web page. There we go. And so if that ever has an issue when you're trying to look at it, you just refresh the web page and it should show up. It says 55 minutes remaining. I gave them a 59-minute time limit because there's a glitch on the Delta Math website. When you try to use 1 hour, it counts 1 hour as 10 hours. So instead, to combat that, I just went ahead and wrote it as 59 minutes. And so here, and that's the only thing that is an issue. If you use 2 hours or anything else, it works. It's just that 1 hour time frame slot that is messing up. And so I went ahead and created it as 59 minutes. And here you'll see that this looks like the format of the skills that I created for that quiz. And each one of these that are 0 out of 1, I tell them, okay, those are the ones that I don't tell them that they all have the same problem, but I do tell them that they only get one problem and they only get 2 attempts to get it right. So let's look at this midline problem. Everybody, and they probably will figure it out by talking to each other, but everybody actually gets the exact same problem, but I did not tell them that. And right here, it's asking for them to determine the equation of the midline of the following graph. If they don't read the directions and they just see the category as midline from a trig graph, they might just think, oh, my answer is -4. Let me go ahead and submit the answer. But it's going to tell them they're wrong. Your answer is not correct. You need to try to find your mistake. And that's because here, if you see these italics, it says equation. So I do that on the teacher interface. I do that selection of giving them more than one chance to fix their mistake, because I do know that sometimes they just type something in wrong. And so now they can fix that by typing in y equals -4. Maybe they don't pick up that has to be y equals, and that's just too bad for them. But I'm really not that harsh. I tell them if they really think the problem is correct, they can send me an email, and what I can do is go and manually change it that they get credit for that problem. They just have to send me an email with a screenshot of their work, and I'll say whether or not it's correct. And I'll show you a student that actually did that right here in my Outlook feature. I went ahead and did that for Ricky, who got this problem correct, in which they needed to write an equation after given a graph. And he typed in f of x equals instead of y equals. And I'm sure he might have made a mistake the first time and then fixed it, but typed in f of x instead of y equals, and that's why it didn't count him as credit. And so he sent me this screenshot. And so what you can do as a teacher is go to that student, and I'll show you later. Actually, let me just go ahead and show you right now. What you can do is, let me return to the teacher account. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is really slow. But what you can do is you can go under student data and view assignments. That's really the longest way to do it. All you got to do is type in the student's name over here in this bar, Ricky Zubizarreta. He was working on this chapter 13 day 4 practice. Right here, you'll see that that's the problem that he got wrong, right? Just to confirm that, I can click on that X and it shows me which problem that is. Yep, that's the one he got wrong. He wrote y equals the first time, but he wrote 2 instead of 3. And so I'm giving him the benefit of doubt, even though I'm not going to count off right here. He did figure out his mistake was it's supposed to be 3, and he thought, oh, that's the issue. I wrote 2 instead of 3. But for some reason, he also typed in f of x instead of y the second time, and that's why he got it incorrect. But if he But since he sent me, not if, but since he sent me that email, I told him, okay, I'll go ahead and change that, and you can manually edit the credit you give for them. So it was 0 out of 1, and I changed it to go ahead and be 1 out of 1. But I can still see that he got it wrong, for my own sake, to go back and check the progress. Anyways, let's go ahead and go back to the student sample page. Right? They got that time limit. These are all, like I said, the 0 out of 1s were created to be everybody has the same problem. They have to get that one problem wrong or correct. And you'll see after they get it correct, it says, okay, you've attempted the max correct. You need to go back and do another problem set. Let's say they worked on amplitude. They type in 4 pi. Now, I know this is incorrect because 4 pi is the period, and the amplitude is actually 4, right? And so maybe they just really are convinced that, okay, the answer has to be 4 pi because of the fact that they're confusing amplitude with period. And they're like, oh, maybe I did that wrong. Maybe the period is actually supposed to be 2 pi, maybe. And they're thinking, okay, maybe it's supposed to be 2 pi. Maybe I confused my idea of, oh, this is actually the full time through before it repeats itself. But their actual misunderstanding is that they're thinking about period rather than amplitude. Well, they go through the 2 attempts. They get them both wrong. They try to press next problem, but it tells them that they've reached the max number. And so they actually can't go back and finish that problem, and they're getting points deducted for not getting it correct. So they go through, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, these are all weighted as only 3% credit. And the mixed reviews, these ones give them randomized problems, no problems, or no student has the same exact problem set. It's just randomly different ones in which they code it to have different graphs show up. Right. And I'm pressing give up on them just so you can see that they're given different problems. But they actually have an unlimited amount of choices, like I said, to get 5 correct. And once they get the 5 out of 5 correct, they're going to get a full 35% credit for this particular problem set, 35% credit here. And then these will all be 3%. That way that they can get a max of 100 if they get everything 1 out of 1 and 5 out of 5 on these mixed reviews. Now, I'm sure some of the students have already finished this, so I can show you what it looks on my end whenever I go in to look at their completed credit. Right, I go to student data, I go at view assignments, and I can click on the chapter 3 day 4 practice, and I can see some students already completed, right? Right here, when I click on, let's say, section 6, I can see that some people finished 100% and they got 100% grade. Some people got 97%. Because, like, see right here, Eric Hollerbeck, I can tell that he has 97% because he got one of those individual problems wrong right here. When I go to Eric Hollerbeck, I press this little plus sign, I can see that he got this trig equation from a graph wrong, and I wonder if he did the same mistake as Ricky. No, he just never typed in y equals, and he had it originally correct, but he never typed in y equals an equation. So I might go in and actually give him some partial credit for that. By just typing this in as 0.5, it will allow for me to do, right? Which puts him up to a 99%, which is basically 100. I might go ahead and give him the 1 credit. I don't know. I'm still going to debate that. And I'll just talk with him about it. It's an equation. Like we've talked about a lot. I talked a lot with them about, like, when you ask for equations, you got to type in an equation, not just an expression. And so I'll just tell them I can't give you full credit, but I can give you partial credit, which at that point maybe I should just go ahead and give them full credit because it's going to get 99%. What's 99 compared to 100? But I'm probably still only going to do partial because of the fact that they should understand, like, okay, an equation means an equation, not an expression. But for that, right, that's how I can see the students' assignments and how they get it. I can also see for some of these students, I can either click on the individual student or I can click on these categories at the top to see everybody's responses for those. So I can see right here that Eric also took more than 5 problems to get 5 out of 5 correct, but it doesn't take away from his score. He still gets the fact that he got all 5. Same with Mark Poisler and so on and so forth. But I can see which students get them all 5 correct on their 5 individual responses and so on and so forth. Really, my Algebra 2 students, and y'all could imagine they're AC Algebra 2 students, they really don't have too much trouble with some of these problem sets. They're pretty bright kids. But if I look at some of these problem sets for, like, my pre-cal students, some of them do take a long time to get things correct. Like, for instance, let me go back real quick. These ones right here where I'm trying to give them the final limit graphically, I can see, whoa, Matthias really struggled with finding the limits graphically, or I can kind of look completely over everybody's, and I can see a lot of red X's. So my next Zoom meeting, I'll go ahead and go over that particular type of problem to get everybody on the same page of what they're doing. Now, some of them, after getting so many incorrect, might already, after they get the 3 correct, understand how to do it finally. But what I've encouraged, and some of them just don't listen, but I've encouraged most of them, like, if you're having trouble, don't just beat your head against a wall. Like, as soon as you get 2 or 3 in a row incorrect, send me an email, and we'll set up an individual Zoom meeting. That's actually what Pierce did right here. We set up an individual Zoom meeting. We did this one together, where he showed me his screen, and that's why it took him 6.9 minutes to do it, whereas some of these other ones were much quicker after I went over that one problem with him, for him to be able to understand that actual problem set. And this one was a homework assignment, not a quiz. And now I'm kind of gone on a tangent because we were talking about the quiz that I gave for my Algebra 2 students. But this is how I've been using Delta Math for the students to kind of work with me, and then also have a sense that they're not just doing something based only on completion, but they have to get things correct. So they have, especially my AC students, kind of have that anxiety of like, well, I need to know whether or not I'm getting it correct because I want to be prepared for next year. And so it allows for them to make sure they're mastering their understanding, while also giving them that slack of that slack line, or that satisfaction of knowing that they don't have to get it all correct every single time, right, for them to get credit. Anyway, so that's how I've been using Delta Math, and this video was mainly talking about the student interface of that quiz. Hopefully it was helpful.